Hello and welcome to Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the documentary The Nettle Dress, directed by Dylan Howitt. So this is a documentary about a textile artist, Alan Brown, and his 7-year journey making a dress from nettles. It's a really interesting film because it's very gentle, it demands nothing from you. There's nothing really to understand. It's like a film that you spend time with rather than actively watch. It becomes comfortable very quickly. You're just happy being there, witnessing this rather beautiful process. It's particularly beautiful because this is a process of recovering from grief. Alan's wife got cancer aged 45 and died, and this has been his way of dealing with it. He spoke about how calm his wife was as she faced her final stages. He speaks about the death and birth, and it's just something that is. We all experience it. I have a really good friend who once said to me that for him birth and death are equivalent and both should be celebrated. I've often thought about this as I've gone through the process of experiencing the deaths of several people that I was close to. So for me, death doesn't bring up uncomfortable emotions. Sadness and love, yes, but I'm perfectly comfortable with those emotions and grateful that I can feel them. I say this because this definitely influenced how I received this film. I can understand that for someone who has a different attitude towards death, or someone who's currently in the middle of massive grief and loss, they may have quite a different experience with this film. I really enjoyed it. As I say, it made me feel grateful and really determined what I have left of life. I think it is really life affirming. I thought a few times during the film that the nettles are a metaphor for the cancer and death, something that stings at first in a quite unpleasant way, but then turns into something really beautiful. There is a very gentle politics here around sustainability and fashion, and almost a manifesto for a new way of making clothes, or rather a return to an old way, a hedgerow couture. A global nettle community has grown around him, and there's something really special about people coming together in a new community around something so quirky as nettles. One personal point on the film: often when you see a film with someone in a woods or on a mountain, I can have a moment thinking, I wish that I lived somewhere like that. I do walk a lot in the woods, and many of the paths he goes down look so similar to where I walk. I looked up the woods after the film, and it's not far from where I live. This is exactly the terrain that I get to walk in every day. This actually gave me another real connection with this film. Now, I hesitate to say anything negative either about the film or the nettle dressmaker Alan Brown himself. As a kind of meditation practice at a spiritual level, I think this film really works. However, this is a channel to critique films, so I need to raise any questions that I have. This was filmed over a 7-year period, which is kind of incredible. There was a recorded Q&A afterwards, and the filmmaker Dylan Howitt explained that him and Alan are good friends and how it would normally be impossible to make a film like this. The fact that they are friends made such a long-term project feasible. Part of this process was a real uncertainty about how they were actually going to make it, of what they were going to do. Neither knew how long the project was going to be when they set out on it. They both only knew the next step each time. There are really positive things about this. This definitely isn't a critique. Where I do have big questions, however, is what Alan was doing in the rest of his life. This film is only just over an hour, and we have no real sense of time passing. If you weren't told, you could easily think that this film was made over the course of a month. We do see Alan with his family a bit, but aside from that, I found it somewhat frustrating not to know more about his life. Is making the nettle dress all he did for 7 years? Or did he have a normal life outside of making the dress? The film seems really authentic, but we know so little about Alan really, apart from these fragments of time over the 7 years. I have just a nagging doubt that to really believe its authenticity, I want to know more about how he was living his life in these 7 years. Taking it at face value, beautiful as it is, it's not exactly much of a programme to deal with grief. There's no sense of how he continues to pay the bills. Most people wouldn't be able to spend 7 years making a dress as a recovery programme. Also, you could argue that the programme wasn't working very well if it took 7 years to work. Listen, I'm absolutely not doubting Alan's sincerity or the filmmaker, and I loved this film. I just found this somewhat unsatisfying. It feels like the film isn't quite complete in what it's presenting. That said, if they didn't plan the film just is what it is, and it's not setting out to be a programme for anything. This is one man recording his journey with this project that really helped him. There's no lecturing or politicising anything here. Perhaps it is just simply a fairy tale. So I can understand it if it sounds like I'm being really harsh on this lovely film. But I am left wondering about this after the film. So it is something that I need to mention as it was my experience. Overall, I highly recommend this film. I watched it the same day as I watched A Day in a Field. It wasn't deliberate, but they do make a really good double bill. I think A Day in the Field does get a little bit preachy sometimes. It's a great documentary and I've done a separate review of it. The nettle dress is so gentle and undemanding, but engages you in a very compelling way. And by the end, it left me with lots of feelings. I highly recommend it. Well worth seeking this film out. Thanks for watching. See you next time.